Good day, everybody. It's Calxiyn here, and if you guys enjoyed this video, remember to subscribe for more Attack on Titan videos. Today, we are going to be doing our Big Moments reaction and discussion to episodes 73 and 74, which are actually episodes 14 and 15, and so I already recorded the intro, but I didn't realize that I got it wrong. I thought that we had 4 episodes left, like we had 13, 14, 15, 16, but we only have 14, 15, which I just already have seen, because again I had to redo the intro. Usually I do intro, reaction, and then discussion, but I had to do intro, reaction, and then I was like, oh shit, we only have one more on Sunday, so that's kind of insane. And so with that in mind, I'm like, because I didn't realize, I thought that we had 2 left, but after this we only have 1 left, and so this is gonna be my Big Moments reaction to both episodes, and then after that I am going to do my little discussion. If you guys want to see my full-length timer and subtitle reaction, that is up on Patreon, and for YouTube membership members, it's the one where you press play when I press play, and you sync up my reaction that way, right? But otherwise, this is gonna be my big moments, and then after that, we are going to do the discussion. But I would suggest checking out the Patreon reactions, just because, the full thing, I was just the entire time. It was pretty crazy, both of these 2 episodes. But yeah, I don't usually record my intro after I already reacted, so that's kind of weird. But yeah, you guys are gonna go see my reactions now, and after that, we're gonna discuss. Let's go. Or is that your Bertold memories, Armin? Oh, man, wow. Yeah, that's what I said. Oh, my God, that's so funny. Damn. Eren's calling him out. I love that. Damn. Damn, Bertold. Whoa. Whoa. Oh, my God, I love this, though. Huh? Whoa, jeez. Whoa, 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 wait. Oh no. Oh no, he's being so mean to them. Oh no, but is this really true, or is he just trying to hurt their feelings on purpose? No! I don't believe that. No, that can't be true. Oh no, but what if he's right though? Oh, Armin. Oh, Armin. Oh dear. Oh, this is so bad. 'Cause I'll kick your ass. Oh, Armin, no. Why is Eren doing this? Guys. Oh. Where is he? He made a run for it. Oh my God. No! Uh-oh. Titans are gonna be falling from the trees. How many of them drank it? Oh no! Oh no! It's just as I feared. It's just what I thought. Oh no! Is it everyone except for Levi? No! Oh my God! What a fucking nightmare! Oh, Levi's so dead. Levi, no! Even Levi, I get it. Levi's pretty cool and shit, but he's not that cool. Oh, Levi! Honey, Levi's so dead. There's absolutely no way. Even for Levi, do I just have no faith? Oh! No, he's gonna come up behind him. What if Levi does kill Zeke? What if he does come up? What if he beats all expectations? What if he kills them all? What if Levi does do it? Oh! Oh, Zeke's dead! Zeke's dead! Zeke's dead! I'm sorry, I never believed in you! Levi, I always believed in you, trouble, bro. Zeke may die. Like, he may actually die. What is happening? Are we getting, like, Zeke backstory? Oh, it was his glasses. Maybe his mentor or his dad? Like the last Beast Titan, maybe? Oh, see, it's the guy with the glasses. Those were Zeke's glasses. Oh, that's so fucked up. Damn, his parents basically forced him into it, though. Oh. Oh, this is so, like, wholesome. Isn't too helpful? Well, that's not true. I mean, maybe Zeke is what made it helpful. Oh, all he wants to do is play baseball. He doesn't want to go to war. Oh, no. And now they see how bad he's doing, too. Damn. Oh, no. Oh, Eren's father. Eren's father doesn't seem like a very good guy in these backstory shots. I like this guy. It's too bad he's dead. Like, obviously he's dead, but damn, I really like this. Oh. Oh boy. Oh no. Ah, no. Oh no. What did this man do? I think this man did it to save Zeke. Damn. So this guy's why? Oh. 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 But is that Zeke's plan? Oh. Oh, I considered him his father. I don't think this is the right answer, though. let us get into the discussion now. Now, I naively thought like, oh, well, you know, if 2 episodes are coming out today, I probably won't cover the first episode very much, like out of the 2 that came out, because any theories I make in the first episode would probably get contradicted in the second episode. That's what I thought, right? Because, you know, like, as things have been going, we haven't gotten like a flashback sequence or a backstory sequence in a while. So I was like, okay, well, if the last episodes are anything to go off, like, say, you know, instead of like 14 and 15 that we got today, like say it was 13 and 14, like I was trying to think of it that way, where, oh yeah, like obviously some of our theories, like our theory crafting wouldn't matter, would get contradicted as soon as the other episode released. But with this specific case, because a lot of it was Zeke backstory in the second episode, we have to talk about both of them, which I'm fine with. Like, I'm fine. We're in the final stretch, you know, we just have to get through. But like, I was more going into this like a little bit of 1, mostly 2, but now it seems like I'm doing 1 and 2. So yeah, that's just how it is. So yeah, I don't know. I'm like excited to talk about these episodes, but a lot of the topics are also very uncomfortable and emotional. So I'm gonna do my best to like give it nuance and do it justice, because there's a lot, like there's a lot to unpack here, right? But yeah, also I just wanted to, you know, clarify that point for you guys. So if I seem like, right, it's because I am like, because I didn't expect to have to like do that much, I guess, in terms of like how we would be breaking down this discussion, if that makes sense. And so yeah, that's why I'm a little bit like, why? Like, why did they do this to me? Like 2 episodes in 1 day, that's crazy. But why don't we start here? Best place to start is probably in this conversation between Eren, Armin, and Mikasa. And I did take note of this face because he looked very like kid-like, if that makes sense, in this expression. Like, he looked more like a teenager, I guess, than like as we've seen him in other scenes, which has been more like a young adult, I guess. Like, he looks more himself in this one moment than in the other scenes. He doesn't really look like himself, right? And so this is Armin being like, did Yelena and Zeke coerce you? And he's like, nope, I'm free, right? And so we get a very interesting conversation out of this. And at first, it's very hard because with Attack on Titan, with this particular scene, right, there's some other things that I do not agree with at all that go down in other episodes, right? Like, in terms of character's perspective. But in terms of this, like, one thing, it's very interesting to see, like, that Eren kinda has a point with what he's bringing up with Armin. I think what he says to Mikasa is very heartless and callous. Like, I don't know, it's very hard because on one hand, like, I understand Eren's perspective in what he's, like, saying right here, especially more so to Armin. Like, he's like, hey, Armin, you have Berthold's memories, and if your memories are what make you who you are and shape you, have you not been reshaped? Like, I do understand, like, that to a degree, and I do agree with that to a degree. However, it's like the extreme that he takes it to and how he goes about it that I do not, like, I am not, And so we'll talk about that. But he says, the things I do and choices I make are all decided by my own free will. But see, he says that, and he criticizes Armin and Mikasa for, like, not having that same amount of free will, at least I think. But does he not have memories as well that have shaped him? And so, like, I feel like it's almost hypocritical for him to say that, but then go after Armin, right? Because he's like, oh yeah, like, I do things by my own free will. But I'm like, but sir, like, you have the same memory thing that Armin does, so how is that any different, right? So your actions after meeting Yelena were all you? So he says yes, and Mikasa tries to insist that he's being manipulated. Everyone wants to think that Eren is being manipulated so bad, and I've talked about this in the last couple weeks, but Eren is not being manipulated. In fact, I think that he's the manipulator, and we'll talk about that when we get to, like, the Zeke stuff. I personally think that Eren is not on board with Zeke's plan. He's just using him for his own plan, if that makes sense. Like, we see Eren like, sure, like, I agree with you, I guess, right? Like, we see that scene, but I don't actually think that's true. I think that Eren is actually using Zeke for Eren's own plan. Now, I wonder if this scene could be mirroring the situation with Niccolo and how Niccolo sort of, like, trashed the scouts, if that makes sense, right? Like, he was like, yeah, Jean, you filthy idiot, right? Like, he was, like, sort of shit-talking them to make them, like, be pushed away from him, right? And to make them not drink the wine. Like, that was the whole thing, is that he did it to save them. So I wonder if Eren hurts Mikasa and Armin's feelings on purpose, not because he actually believes it, but to do sort sort of the same thing. Like, Nicola was doing that to push them away so they wouldn't get hurt by the line. But I wonder if Eren is doing this in a more emotional way. Like, if I push Eren and Mikasa away now, when my plan actually happens and the bad things, like, they won't cry for me, basically, is sort of what I'm thinking. Because Mikasa brings up, like, no, like, I know you wouldn't do this. You're being manipulated. I know you care about us more than anyone. And so this is where Eren realizes that he must prove, or he must, like, plant the idea in their mind that he doesn't actually care about them. But I don't think that that's true, especially because it contradicts, like, I know that Eren's not that same person anymore from a couple of years ago. I know he's not that same person like he was, like, in the cart and all that stuff when he's like, I care about you guys more than anything. Like, I know that he's not that same person, but I do think that that is who Eren truly is deep down. So I feel like that this is an act. Like, this is to push people away on purpose. That's how I see it, right? And so then she talks about, you know, the cabin scene, the scarf scene, that has been coming back in recent episodes with her flashbacks and with her headaches. And so now it's interesting to see how those play in, because I was sort of like, oh, why is she having these memories? Like, is she just, you know, sort of feeling guilty? Like, she felt like Eren saved her and now she's sort of betraying him? Or did she sort of go back and think like, oh yeah, Eren was always kind of had a couple screws loose, right? Like, I was sort of trying to figure out the meaning of those scenes, but it seems like those flashes and the headache played into what Eren's actually saying. And so that's the scary thing, is that Eren is saying all these things about Armin having Bertholdt's memories and about Mikasa and what she was quote unquote designed for. But at the same time, because he mentions like the biological thing of the headaches, I'm just like, Eren's wrong, but it's kind of hard, right? It's kind of hard to be like, is Eren completely wrong? Is he right? Like, I don't know. Like, as the audience member, I want to believe that Mikasa grew of her own, like, strength, I guess, where she found strength in Eren saving her life, and she's been, you know, fighting on her own ever since. But I think Eren is making the point that her strength comes from, like, instinct or, like, design or something, almost like destiny, right? And so it's a very hard pill to swallow for me as the audience member, because on one hand, I'm like, well, you know, Mikasa, to me, like, I've seen sort of her character arc develop. Like, is what Eren's saying true? But then Eren brings up the headaches, and Mikasa did have a headache, and how would Eren know that otherwise, right? And so that's where I was kind of like, I don't know, Eren's gaslighting me too, right? If he's gaslighting Mikasa, he's gaslighting me, because I'm sort of like, I don't know who to believe, right? I sort of think that the situation that we're in right now is that, yes, Eren is right on some level, but that is not the whole truth. Just like Armin and Bertholdt's memories. Like, yes, is Armin shaped by Bertholdt's memories? Probably, right? Like, he has Bertholdt's memories now, but does that mean that Armin cannot, like, look at them or, like, take them with a grain of salt, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, they're not manipulating Armin, but rather Armin could, I guess, take them out and, like, put them in their own, like, Bertholdt box, right, and analyze them from the perspective of Armin analyzing Bertholdt's memories versus Armin thinking that he is Bertholdt, right? Like, or like feeling the same stuff as Bertholdt and thinking that he's feeling it as Armin. You guys understand what I'm saying? So I think that even though Eren is saying all this stuff, I think that on some level he's also wrong, right? Because maybe it's the spark. Like, maybe he's right about Mikasa and Armin and, like, you know, that being like, oh, you know, Bertholdt's memories, or you were designed to do this. Like, maybe that was the spark, but I don't think that that's all that the characters are, if that makes sense. Like, I think especially in Armin's case, like him being like very analytical and stuff, I feel like that ultimately, yes, he has Bertholdt's memories, but he is able to look at them like from a certain perspective, you know what I mean? And so then he talks about, you know, speaking to Zeke, right? Zeke knows more about the Titans than even Marley does, and now we know that Zeke has gotten that from his, oh god, I don't remember the guy's name, the scientist, right? Armin, aren't you still visiting Annie? Do you think that's your own free will, right? So this is where, again, the stuff that I've been talking about, like an interesting question is sparked by this. If memories are what shape people, a part of you is Bertholdt now. Within you is an enemy with feelings for another enemy, right? And so, Armin, Bertholdt has got into your head. You're the one manipulated by the enemy. And so that's interesting, though, because, like, you could argue, again, a little hypocritical of Eren, like, does Eren not have the same problem? Like, does Eren not, like, he's tapped into his dad's memories before, like, how is that not the same thing? You know what I mean? And so I do think that both can be true. Like, sure, okay, he does, you know, like, maybe Bertolt has got it into his head, but maybe that's not a bad thing. Maybe how we learn as human beings, like, yes, we have our own memories, but we are also shaped by the experience of other people. Now, are other people literally in our head? No, but I think that interacting with other people and hearing their story and hearing their experiences does inherently shape us as people without, quote unquote, like, manipulating our free will, right? So I feel like that Eren may be projecting a little bit. Like, I feel like he may be projecting. He's trying to upset them, clearly. He's trying to make them second guess themselves. And so even though I think that Eren, like, on a functional level has some form of correctness, I also think that he's wrong. I think he underestimates. I think that free will is being able to take all the information you're given and, like, surmise your own explanation from it. And I feel like that's what Armin has been doing with Bertolt's memories and has been doing with Annie to some extent. And even to that, like, I would argue the same is true with Mikasa. Like, I think that free will is having, I guess, I don't want to say all the options, but you guys understand what I'm saying? Like, everything available to you, but you making that choice, right? And I don't know, like, it's also hard because then there's so many questions of, like, okay, well, if memories make us who we are as people, do we really have free will? Like, there's a bunch of, like, philosophical questions, right, about that. But I think Armin's the better example because with Mikasa, stuff's still iffy about her, but with Armin, it's like, I think that free will is having all the information in front of you and making a choice based off of that information. He's not being manipulated by Bertolt. If anything, he's just, like, you know, distilling and synthesizing the information that he has from Bertolt and making it his own. And I think that that's true with Mikasa as well. It's just kind of different, but she's making the purpose, like, her own, like, her purpose, I guess, you know, to fight for Eren and support Eren. Like, she decided that, like, as a kid when he saved her, right? And so even if it was, like, even if a part of her, like, feels that, like, instinctually, I guess, like, I still feel like that was a choice, and a choice to go into the Survey Corps, and, like, all of her strength has come from, like, her making a choice, not just instinct. It's more like she made a choice knowing that, like, her instincts would help her through it, but obviously, like, she didn't know back then, right? And so, I don't know, it's kind of really complicated, but yeah, I think that, like, it's a very hard scene, right? Then you see her act on instinct, and it muddies the water a little bit, but I think that I've made my point. I think that you guys understand what I'm saying, right? Like, ultimately, like, we are a mixture of things that have been, like, forced upon us as people and things that we choose. And so I feel like that, like, you know, eventually, like, even the things that, like, we had no choice in, like, we eventually, like, come out of it, like, with the choice, I guess. And I guess, like, again, I think that, like, Armin is the best example of that. He has Bertolt's memories, but he's doing things of his own, like, volition after seeing that. I don't know. It's kind of hard to explain. I can't think of an example, I guess. Like, I don't know. But yeah, I don't know. I can think of moments in my life where, you know, I didn't ask to be put into a situation, but I kind of, like, made the situation work in my favor or made the situation my own or something. Like, you know what I mean? Like, ultimately came out of it, right? And so even though maybe it wasn't my choice, like, it eventually, like, I don't know, like, I eventually, like, turned it around or adapted to it or something. I don't know. But yeah, that's how I kind of see Mikasa. Like, Mikasa, maybe it was instinct, but that doesn't mean that she doesn't have free will. Like, free will is, I think, taking the struggle that you're given in life and taking what you're given and then, like, fighting through it in a sense. And I think that's what Mikasa kind of did. And so yeah, I don't know. But that's basically the scene. I don't think I have anything else to say about it. But it's very interesting to then see, again, the contrast between her, like, bodying Armin in a little bit. So I think that this line from Eren is actually really interesting in the context of next episode, and that's why I kind of think that we're going to be going back and forth a little bit. Here's the thing. I feel like that Eren has this line for a reason. Like, you know, like, what I hate more than anything are those who aren't free, just like livestock. And I know he had that other line about, like, oh, well, now they want us to breed like livestock, like in the case of Historia and everything like that. But I feel like that this line hints at the fact that Eren is just using Zeke and does not want to go through with the sterilization plan that they talk about in the next episode. And I say that because if this is truly exactly how Eren feels. I can't see him agreeing with sterilization, right? Because that is, in a sense, taking away choice. Like, that's taking away a choice. And it is treating them like livestock. You know, like how we sterilize like animals, right? Like, think about like cats and dogs and stuff like that. You neuter your dogs and cat. Like, if you did that to people, that's unconscionable. Like, that's like horrible, right? So I feel like that if Eren has this mindset, how could he then agree with Zeke's plan? I feel like that he has a plan of his own, and I think that they established in the next episode that it's actually the person with the founding Titan power that changes like the body makeup or whatever, like makes the choice, whatever that choice is. In one case, it was like resisting the plague, right? And so I feel like that Eren is just using Zeke, and that Eren will do something else. Now, if I'm sort of thinking about it, and maybe we'll talk about this like more in the next episode section, but I would say like for them to lose the power to turn into Titans at all, but not right now, like later down the line, right, when they like maybe scare the world a little bit and are like, hey bitch, leave us alone, like after that you could have it so like people no longer turn into Titans anymore, and then, you know, the Titan like shifters wouldn't be a fear of like the rest of the world. And I do understand that that wouldn't make like the racism go away, right? Because you have, you know, like still those like lingering feelings, I guess, and like I think that they would still be oppressed in places like Marley. So that doesn't entirely solve the problem, but what it would do is make sure that no nation ever gets the Titan shifter powers in their hands again without, you know, sterilizing people, Zeke, right? Without doing that, and also, like, you know what I mean? Like, and then they would still, like, be able to live. And so basically what I'm saying is that I think that Eren has a different plan. I'll talk about that plan a little bit more later. I'm not on board with the sterilization plan. Let's just get that thing straight. I think that there's so many better options, and I'm just like, Zeke, what the fuck? But anyway, this is why I don't think that Eren actually agrees with Zeke. I think that Eren is just using Zeke and he'll do something else. I don't know what that something else will be, but I think that he'll do something else. So ultimately, yeah, this is like fucked up. Like, this is a fucked up scene, and I feel like that he is doing it to hurt them on purpose. Like, I feel like that he's hurting their feelings on purpose so they stop caring about Eren. Like, I feel like that at this point, Eren is going to do something drastic and kind of bad and kind of make himself the villain, if that makes sense, and then push like everyone away. And I wonder if we will get into, I'm not going to talk about it because you guys should go watch the show, but my favorite anime, like, I'm not going to say it either, but you guys know, if you guys know my favorite anime, I wonder if we'll get into my favorite anime territory, because I wonder if Eren will make himself the enemy and be like, hey world, I can make it so all of the Titan shifting will stop, but you need to do the thing, and then that'll like unite everyone against one common enemy, and maybe people wouldn't necessarily like be so bad to the Eldians anymore. But I think that maybe that's naive of me. I don't know. I'm just sort of thinking like maybe Eren will make himself like this big bad villain, and that'll unite everyone, and then by the end of the war, like, I don't know, maybe the world would change. I think that, like, here's what I'm gonna say. Maybe I'm getting a little ahead of myself, and we'll talk about this more when we get to the other episode, but I feel like that with the freedom thing and with the choice stuff, you should be making a world that is better for your people to live in, as opposed to wanting to wish that they were never born or that they'll never be born, right? And so that's where I really disagree with Zeke's sentiment, is that, like, I think that Zeke has a lot of trauma and a lot of internalized stuff, and we'll get there when we get there, but, like, I feel like that, you know, you should be striving to make the world that you already live in better, not to, like, purposefully, like, make sure that no one has to live in the world, because I feel like that, you know what I mean? There's just so many fucked up things about what Zeke sort of has in mind. I think in this particular scene, he is trying to push Armin and Mikasa away. And so I can't believe this. Like, I can't believe that he would say this. Like, this must be earth-shattering for her, and I'm really interested in Mikasa's character arc, because this was so fucked up, and I love seeing Armin. He just goes right for it, right? And Gabby must be like, what the fuck? Like, Gabby must be sitting here like, oh, what the hell is this guy? You know what I mean? Like, she must be like, this guy's, like, even more heartless than I thought to say that to his fucking friends. Like, I wonder what she thinks of all of this. But yeah, and then, right, we see Mikasa pin Armin down, which again muddies the waters, right? Because she doesn't seem like she even wanted to do it. Like, she snaps out of it. And I'm just like, well, is, like, what Eren was saying true? Like, am I being, like, I don't understand. Am I being manipulated as an audience member, right? And so, like, God, this is fucked up. I can't believe he did this to her. And I love seeing this shot where he just takes it in the face, right? Like, I feel like that he wants them to hate him. And I haven't figured out why yet, but I think it's a lot like what Nicola was trying to do. And I think that even bumping into the wine, like, could be, like, metaphorical of that in a way, right? And so this is just crazy. And then, like, you know, we have the whole, oh, you know what, we've never thought before because you're shit, right? And so I'm just like, oh my God, like, this was just such, like, a heartless, horrible scene, and Eren just beats him to a pulp, and Mikasa, like, you know, stands by Armin's side, but I just can't believe this. Like, this was just so fucked up, but I don't think I have anything to say about this particular scene. So what's interesting about this is that Gabby is coming along with them, and I'm like, why? Like, I don't know. Like, why does Eren want her to come with them? Like, that's the only thing I'm like, But, like, I don't know. Maybe that will be important later, especially with Peck and Reiner around, or at least Peck. We don't know if Reiner's here. But, like, I wonder if Gabby could get, like, I think that Falco is gonna get Reiner's powers for sure. I think that he's definitely gonna get them, especially if that'll save his life. I don't know if that'll be, like, a this season thing or a next part 2 season thing, but I do think that that's gonna be a thing. But I just wonder, because Gabby's coming with them, like, she could see what goes down with Zeke and Eren and all that stuff. And so, yeah, I'm curious to see, like, what she thinks of all of this. But I guess, like, in a way, they're all going to the same place, right? So Gabby and Falco, like, even though they're taking different cars, they'll end up, like, back together. And I just wonder, like, what they're gonna do. But yeah, we only have one more episode, so I don't know. But yeah, this was just fucked. Right? And, like, Gabby must be like, I fucking hate you. Like, you know what I mean? Like, how can you treat your friends like that? Like, even though I don't think she has a lot of, like, she doesn't have, like, you know, any particular, like, feeling towards Mikasa and Armin. Like, I don't think she gives a shit, right? But at the same time, like, they said that they didn't want to kill her. They helped her when she had, like, injuries and stuff, even though Gabby killed their friend. And so I feel like that, I don't know. I feel like that Gabby is anti-Eren, but could be more anti-Eren because of how Eren just treated Armin and Mikasa. So that's kind of interesting when you think about it. Just before we go from this scene, this was fucked up too, right? That Armin says, like, oh, so this is what you wanted freedom for? You wanted freedom just so you could hurt Mikasa? So I'm assuming they mean from the prison, because, like, Eren escaped from the prison and was like, hey, I want to talk to you. And Armin's like, you wanted to talk to us just so you could hurt her feelings? And so I think that this is interesting. Tell me, who's the slave that bows to a bastard again? And so I thought that that was interesting, because I don't really know what that means. I don't know if he means to Zeke, especially maybe, like, is Zeke, like, the bastard child compared to Eren, or vice versa? Like, I would consider Eren more the bastard child, like, considering that Zeke has royal blood and Eren doesn't, right? But I thought that this was interesting, because I'm like, is Armin talking about, like, Eren and Zeke right there? Like, I don't know. Like, I thought that that was a punchy line, even though I'm not entirely sure its intention. But I think that he's basically saying, like, oh, like, Eren thinks that he's, like, all high and mighty all of a sudden, but, like, what's the, you know, what is the truth, right? And maybe it's not even bows to a bastard as in another person, but it's more like to Eren's own, like, anger and hatred and stuff. Like, it's more like, you know, Eren is, like, a slave to himself and his own emotions and stuff like that. Like, that could be the thing. I don't know. Yeah, so Levi basically talks about the plan to get someone else to eat Zeke. I don't know if Levi is thinking that through, though, because obviously Zeke has royal blood, and, like, any of the random, like, Jaegerists even, like, don't. So I don't know what the plan with that was. I don't know. I found that kind of weird. But anyway, I love this, like, little, like, banter between them. He's like, yeah, I've read this book 7 times. And I wonder, like, what the book actually is. I mean, I guess he's just been reading the same book for the entire month, because they've been here a month at this point, which is crazy. And I love this. Can you blame me when I read it this much? It's just, like, there's comedy gold between them, and it's so bad, because there shouldn't be. Like, there should be no comedy going on right there. And so he's like, by the way, is there any wine left? Not a single drop. We've been here a month, right? So I guess this is sort of hinting towards the fact that Zeke knew that, like, as soon as all the wine ran out, like, that was his time to, like, run away. Like, it was almost like a signifier of how much time had passed and stuff, maybe. I don't know. I mean, they could have drank at a slower or faster rate, so I don't know if that's necessarily it. But it's more, again, pointing to the fact that, like, the Titan serum is in basically everyone except for Levi, because Levi likes tea. And we'll get into that when we see the flashback of how the wine got there, but he's like, good grief, you sure know how to torture someone, which I thought was funny. And then Zeke starts running and screaming into the woods. So this sucks a lot for Levi because he's talking about like there's no escape for Zeke. You know, now that we know that Zeke's bad, I'm gonna chop him up into pieces. He's saying that he'll uphold the promise he made to Erwin, right? There was meaning in your deaths. At long last, I'll prove it, right? But then more deaths happen, right? And so he's talking about, you know, like the comrades, the people that they've lost, but they're about to lose more people as, again, Zeke runs into the woods. And so that was very difficult. And so Levi turns back, and then you see Zeke running, and he's doing the bad things. Now, this scene was so crazy because, like, people are up in the trees reading their books or holding on to weapons, and they start falling because everyone is turning. And this was just such a crazy, like, oh my god, the lighting right here as you see the forest just light up, and then you see Levi completely surrounded, the Titans are falling from the trees. Like, it is so fucked. Like, this scene was so, like, oh my god, it was so impactful, even though we knew that everyone had drank it, right? Like, that was the thing I've been theorizing about, like, for weeks, and so I did see it coming, obviously, but it was still crazy. And then you have everybody in here except for this one girl, right? And it seems like even Prixus felt it too, so he must have drunk some, right? And so it seems like everyone except for her felt something, and they're not in the radius, so they didn't turn yet, but they will if Zeke has the chance to do it again, right? So this girl's like, I didn't feel a thing, but everyone else did, and so this is death flags for this man. Sorry to this man. I liked him too. I'm kind of sad, because he'll probably die. Like, not now, but sometime. All it's gonna take is one person to scream, unless, like, the wine leaves their system eventually, right? Like, I don't know how any of that works, because they've been drinking it for, like, a month straight. Well, actually, what if that's why Zeke knew he had to do it now? Because he knew he ran out of wine. Like, what if Zeke's been waiting all this time for Eren to give him some kind of signal that Eren's released from prison, but when Levi told him that they were out of wine, Zeke realized that he had to act now because, like, the next time somebody takes a piss, it's gonna be out of their system, right? Like, I doubt that it stayed in their system all month. And so what if, like, that's the thing, is that, like, it eventually, like, has a time limit. So they were drinking the wine all this time, and it was sort of a thing to, like, trick people. Like, it was a thing to trick people and make them not suspect anything. Like, hey, we've been drinking the wine for a month, right? But I'm sort of thinking, like, what if Zeke knew, because the wine was all gone, that this was his last and final chance to run away? Like, he had to do it now before it passed through everyone's system. Like, I wonder how long it stays in the system. Did the other title card from before say that? No. It didn't. Now, this is really bad news for poor Falco, because it seems like to me that this means that Falco did ingest some of the spinal fluid, and the only way that I can see them getting out of this is, again, if Reiner sacrifices himself for Falco, and I highly see that. Like, I'm 100% sure that that is what's gonna happen. And you know what I found interesting, actually? I know that this may not be the time to bring it up, but it's funny that in the flashbacks, like, Gearsha is talking to Grice, and isn't that Falco and Colt's last name? Like, I thought that it was, because they were saying, like, oh yeah, like, our family, you know, we had, you know, a so-and-so that was, like, a revolutionist, but now we joined the warrior cadets, and so, like, you know, they let us live, sort of thing, or, like, we're, you know, helping to, like, reclaim or prove ourselves or something. Like, there was that thing, and so it seems like the Grice family, like, canoodled, I don't know what you call it, like, conspired. They conspired, not canoodled. They conspired with, Eren and, yeah, Eren's dad, right? So yeah, Eren and Zeke's dad. So I wonder if that sort of revolutionary spirit could still be inside of Falco and Colt. Just wanted to bring that up while it was fresh in my mind. But yeah, this seems like major, like, flags for Falco getting turned, because at this point, if he's feeling it, it must be in his system. Like, I guess making him try to, like, you know, throw up didn't help. Again, unless it passes through your system and Zeke doesn't make it here in time to, like, turn them all, and then it just, like, goes out of your system and stuff. But I could really see, like, Reiner basically sacrificing himself for Falco at this point. Now, this is interesting because it really does seem like Zeke counted on Levi not being able to kill his own men. But again, Levi talks about this later, like, you're underestimating it. Like, you know how many people that I have inadvertently killed, right? After all of this, like, after all this shit, like, you know what I mean? And so I feel like that this was a very impactful scene, though, nonetheless. Like, you see, like, everyone, like, running up the tree, like, it's fucking crazy, you, right? And so I like this like scene, like wine, why bring wine, right? And now we know why. We know the Titan serum was in it. And then we get an explanation, like they're all like thirsty to drink this good wine, right? But then Levi's like, nah, we have tea. But eventually I guess Levi was like, fine, bring it with you, right? And so I wonder if Levi feels personally also responsible for that, because he's the one who seemed to make the final call and he gave into their, you know, inhibitions, I guess. I mean, I don't have a problem with drinking, but I'm just sort of saying, right? Like in this case, like some people find alcohol like a vice or whatever, and so like they gave into their, you know, their vices, or like, let's get fucked up, have a little wine, you know what I mean? But Levi didn't, and that's why Levi's alive. I don't know what kind of message that sends or anything. I'm just saying that that's something that I sort of noticed, right? I wonder if Levi just feels bad because he's the one that made that final call ultimately, right? Not a single person froze up. Was it all a lie? And yeah, like all this time, Zeke is telling stories of, oh yeah, you would freeze up if you had my spinal fluid. Like he's telling war stories around the campfire, so nobody thought anything was wrong. And yeah, it's crazy to see this Titan go up the tree, right? And like he just seemed so fucked for a minute, and I was like, Levi, I never doubted you, but did I doubt him? Yes. And this was a fucked up scene too. So this Titan tries to grab him, and then you see the face of the person that he once was, and I think that that was so, like, this was so sad and so fucked up, and then you just see him, and this is why I thought that Levi was going to resign himself and die, because he had this empty look on his face. But I guess, like, I don't know how to explain this look. Like, I thought it was dead inside, but maybe it was more, no, you're not in there anymore. Like, maybe he accepted it. Like, maybe it was a resignation sort of thing, and that is how, like, he got through it all. I think that this is interesting from Zeke, though, because he's not like, ha. Like, he did it because he genuinely thought, like, all the world's might will soon fall upon this island. You guys thought you had time, power, choices, not realizing that you had none of those. Levi was your biggest mistake. And so I feel like that's interesting coming from Zeke, because Zeke genuinely feels like they're running out of time, and if he doesn't do something soon, they're all screwed. And so I find it compelling how Zeke is a bit more of a layered, like multifaceted character. You know what I mean? Like, he's not sitting here like laughing, right? Even if I explained my intentions, you wouldn't understand. Like, he just feels like no one understands him, which is like, when you find out what they actually don't understand, it's fucked up, right? But we didn't know this while we were watching this episode. Once I escape this forest, that's where you'll be. I hope you remember where and when we're supposed to meet. And then we just see, like, I think that we see first Levi on, like, the other side, right? Like, more over here, but I don't think I got a screenshot, but you just see him, like, slowly, like, zipping around, and then he, like, comes through, and he's covered in blood, and it's crazy, and I really, really liked this scene, and I just like Levi's resolve. Like, I can't believe he killed all those Titans. Like, I know that they have new stuff now, like, I know they have bombs and shit, but, like, Levi is truly the GOAT. Like, I don't know how else to explain it. Like, he truly is. And then this was fucked up too, and so I'm not gonna show a lot of it just because I don't think YouTube would appreciate that. But you see, like, how Zeke tears apart the body of one of the Titans, like one of the comrades, like Levi's comrade that he turned, and is using it to pelt stuff at Levi, and that was just, like, so fucked up, right? And so I'm not gonna show that much of it, but you can see it, like, sort of here, like, it's just tissue and bone, I imagine, and bad things. What happened to your lovely buddies? Don't tell me you killed them all, poor things, right? And so, yeah, spoiler alert, he did, and I'm amazed that he did, but I'm not amazed, I guess. Like, at the same time, like, Levi's Levi, you know what I mean? I should have never doubted him, but I did. Like, I gotta admit that I did. You're looking desperate, Hairball. All you had to do was read your damn book. What gave you the idea that you could escape from me? Did you think I wouldn't kill my comrades if they turned into Titans? You don't have a damn clue how many comrades we killed. There we go. Yeah, and so, oh my god, this was just such a good scene. I love seeing, like, Zeke's just in there with a bunch of the bombs, and then they go up. Like, this was just such a cool scene between them. I do wish it went on a little longer, though, because it does feel like Levi got his revenge pretty quickly, but I guess he's still, like, he wants to take it out on, I guess, human Levi, not human Levi, sorry. He wants to take it out on human Zeke, not Beast Titan Zeke, right? And so ultimately, like, it kind of makes sense why this was so, like, short in a way. Now, I thought that this scene was sort of interesting for a lot of reasons. Like, it harkens back to, again, those first seasons, like joining the Survey Corps. But you see how, like, unwilling everyone looks so, like, I don't know, everyone looks so like that they don't care, and we sort of get an explanation like, oh, you know, like, why are they even teaching us how to kill a Titan anymore? There are no more Titans. Like, it's all about fighting against people now. Like, you have the, you know, they think that, like, it's useless. They basically have, like, people inside of the Survey Corps, and we see them talking like they think that all this shit is useless because now they're going to war with people. Really, it's not about killing Titans anymore. Like, you have them being like, oh, why do we care how to cut a Titan's nape? Like, right, there's only, like, the Titan shifters left, technically. Like, I mean, Zeke, like, because of what Zeke's doing, they may need to learn how to cut a Titan's nape. Like, I don't think that it's super useless, but they're basically complaining, like, it's not like they'll attack again, our enemies are people now. But I think they're also underestimating it, though, because, like, can't they still, like, take Eldians from Marley and turn them into Titans? Like, can't they basically do the same thing with the airship that they did in the second episode, right? And so Titans aren't necessarily extinct. Like, Titans may be gone, like, they slaughtered all the Titans on the outside of the walls that were on Parodies, but that doesn't mean that they can't make more, and this episode shows that, right? So Flock comes in with his guns, and now listen, last episode, I loved Flock. Now, I think that Flock is just kind of an asshole. I don't know how to explain it, but last episode, I kind of thought that he was, like, smart and almost, like, charming in, like, the shit-eating way that he, you know what I mean? The shit-eating way that he was, but I don't find him very charming anymore. I think that he's just an asshole, right? And so, like, look at these guys. These guys must be happy. They're the ones that were shit-talking. But I think that, like, this scene was so funny, right? Looks like you figured it out, Flock. Unless you point guns at people, no one cares what your little gang of asswipe says. I thought that this was so funny, and he doesn't even flinch when he tries to shoot him, and I thought that that was great. And so I just really liked the scene, but this made me like Flock less. Like, I feel like that this was much less, I don't know, like, it was much less, I don't know, just something about last episode was much, like, better with Flock's character than this one, in my opinion. Like, obviously, I'm not saying that this isn't in character for him, it's just less fun than last episode's what. Like, it's, I don't know, it didn't impress me, it more so just annoyed me. Like, I was like, really? Like, fucking really? But at the same time, it just shows you, like, how he is an effective speaker. Like, when he wants to be, he does rally people, and, you know, in terms of, like, the propaganda machine, I guess you could argue that he does do, like, well in that regard, right? Like, he's basically doing propaganda 101 when he asks the people to, like, beat up the commander, which is so fucked up. Like, that's where I was like, wow, like, this episode's getting really fucked up. Like, obviously, you know, like, the comrades, like, Levi's, like, squad, I guess, like, turning into Titans and stuff, like, that was fucked up, but, like, this is where things got, like, a little too real, like, a little too real world, like, propaganda time, and this was just, like, this was just really, really hard to watch. And you see that they're all shocked by this, and they're hesitant to do it, but this is, again, like propaganda 101, like, oh, like, he represents something, and so show me, like, your resolve, right? Like, this is, like, manipulation, like, to the highest degree, and, like, brainwashing, like, this is how it all starts, you know? And so I felt like this was really fucked up, but it does showcase, like, you know, like, this is legitimately how it happens, and so it's uncomfortable to watch, and it's horrifying to watch, but it's also, like, these things can happen on micro levels as well, but obviously, like, this is in a military setting, but I'm just sort of thinking, like, seeing this scene, I guess it hits you, like, how these things start, like, how, like, this type of propaganda and this type of brainwashing starts, and if you can see how it starts, like, maybe you can prevent it even on those micro scales, right? Because even though, like, this is obviously a very different, very serious situation, given that there's military stuff going on, it's a little bit different, but doesn't it also remind you of, like, I don't know, like, high school cliques, like, you can't sit with us unless you do this, right? Like, you know, like, I don't know, like, pull the chair out before that person sits down, or else, like, you know, this and that, like, almost like that, like, high school, like, clique mentality, like, these sorts of things can happen on a micro level, too, and, like, that's another thing that I'd like to talk about, probably not in relation to this exactly, but there was something I was thinking about the other day, and it's that, like, propaganda does not just happen, like, in war times. Obviously, like, this is, like, you know, the war, like, setting and all of that stuff, but propaganda happens in our modern day as well. Like, it happens, you know, like, from corporations, it happens from influencers, it happens from, you know, fandom and, like, fandom community members. Like, it's not just, like war. Like propaganda is not only used in war anymore, like it is used like in a different way, like by like, you know, again, like companies and stuff, right? And you may not notice it at first, right? Or like, you know, the other examples I said, you may not notice it at first because we sort of think like, oh, you know, propaganda's for the war times, like that's only in war and like, you know, government and stuff like that. Like no, like there's actually like a methodology to propaganda that is just like, it's a method of manipulation that can be applied like from person to person. Like that's what I mean by on a micro level. Like it can happen on a micro level as well. And so I feel like that the show is really showcasing that, and I hope that that means that people will be able to sort of spot this a little better, like given the fact that they've now seen how it goes down in like a narrative setting. And even this, like, you know what I mean, this is a very extreme example, but I feel like it's a very good example. I really did like the composition of this scene, though. I liked how he was like, you know, no matter how many of these tots there are, they're no match for me. And you just see them, they clench their fists, and then you see them almost, I think they're shamed. You know what I mean? Like, I think that they did get bruised up a little bit. Like, I think that he probably did put up a fight. But this, to me, is a very, I'm kind of doing it right now, so I don't know what that says about me. I'm just, like, holding myself because I'm holding the mouse, right? But, like, when you do that sort of, like, motion, that sort of body language tells me that you're ashamed of what you did. And so I feel like that's what that means. At least that's what I think it means to me. And now they're like, okay, well, can you know, guide us to where Zeke's being held, right? And then you also see, like, he's all bloody and bruised and stuff. And so I wonder what's going to happen now. I guess these people are going to be in charge of the Survey Corps now. And so it's just so fucked up how they're just looking at this man, like, bleeding, and he's old. And you guys know that, like, my emotional weakness is, like, grandpa's. Like, if something bad happens to a grandpa, I will start to cry. And so, yeah. So, like, I don't know. I hope that man's okay. I hope that they, like, take care of him. I hope that they don't kill him. I hope he's not dead. He didn't look dead to me. Like, I've seen dead characters in the show. He didn't look dead. But anyway, then we have Floch, Hanj, and then bringing Hanj into the carriage. And so what's interesting too is you seem to have Armin and Mikasa, and they're all in the prison downstairs. You also seem to have Sasha's family are in the prison, Connie's in the prison, Jean's in the prison. So it seems like they're sort of there temporarily. Well, I don't know, Eren looks out a window or something, right? And then we have Levi. And so this is where we start to tie into the next episode that we will talk about, right? And so we see, like, obviously you have Levi, you have Zeke, who is in a very bad spot, very bad shape, 0 out of 10, would not recommend, right? There's a wire around your neck attached to the Thunder Spear fuse. Squirm too much and you'll be blown in half or worse, right? And so I love this shot. Like, this shot was very pretty. Like, the shot of the sunset, lots of shots of Levi were really good. Bet you wish you were dead right now. Not that I sympathize, you toyed with the lives of my comrades. And so, oh God, I'm getting a little choked up a little bit. But yeah, I really like this scene. And like, Levi's also so brutal in it, but I'm not going to show you guys that part, obviously. I love this line. Like, I think that they have such good dialogue together, even though they're such like enemies. Like, it's so like fucked up. Shut up. Unless I slice you to bits, you'll turn into a Titan again. And it's interesting too, because he's getting like so delirious that he starts like hallucinating about the scientist guy, and he's like, where are my glasses? And I was like, he still cares about his glasses. But now, knowing the context of why, I was like, oh, he still cares about his glasses. Like, Zeke's a bad person, but I don't know. Like, seeing his backstory, you just kind of feel sympathy for him, right? And it's very hard. And then, like, Levi's like, who cares? Like, who gives a shit about your glasses, dude? Like, what? Right? And so, it's like, then we see, like, why. Then we see why he cares about his glasses. Because of this guy, and it made me so like, it just made me so emotional. And, like, this is, like, the hint, right? Because he's wearing the glasses, right? And so I can't, I don't know how to say this guy's name. I'm gonna say Savor, just because I feel like the K is probably silent, or maybe it's Caver and the S is silent. Caver kind of sounds right. And so he's like, I have one mission, right? And then we get into next episode. But yeah, I think we pretty much covered episode 14. Yeah, so I think we pretty much covered episode 14, all the stuff that I wanted to talk about in it. I don't really have any other theories. I do think that Gabby and Falco will probably become relevant. I think that next episode we could see Peck and Reiner, and I feel like that could play into the Falco and Gabby stuff. But otherwise, like, I don't really have a lot to say other than the fact that it seems like that we're coming to a head in a way somehow. You know what I mean? Especially because you see that scene of Yelena and she has the gun. Like, what is she doing? And she seems to be in the same area as Armin, Mikasa, all of them. But it seems like that they're taking Hanji alone. Like, it seems like they're taking Hanji alone to go get Zeke, because Armin and Mikasa were in the basement. And so I thought, like, oh, you know, if you tell us where Zeke is, like, we won't have a problem. But it seems like that Hanji is already going there, but Mikasa and Armin are, like, staying in the jail. So I wonder what will happen with that. I wonder if what will happen is that Peck, Reiner, and whoever else, right, like whoever else is around, they'll take the opportunity to attack, and Eren's like, ah, shit, I better get you guys out of the prison or else we're screwed, right? And he lets Mikasa, Armin, Connie, and Jean out, because it's like, it's again, like, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Like, yeah, we're not really friendly with Eren right now, but, like, what can you do, right? Like, what can you do in terms of the impending threat that is Marley? So maybe they'll briefly reunite for a second. But yeah, I don't really have any theories, like, based on the stuff that happened this episode, other than, again, Falco being, like, being inherited, like, having the Titan powers from Reiner. Like, that's basically all I got right now. So now we get into backstory time, and I feel like that's something I want to talk about, is how Zeke's childhood basically turned him into who he is today, and why he advocates for the sterilization plan. And again, I think that that plan is wrong, but I'm just saying about, like, how Zeke, like, came to this conclusion that that would be the best thing to do. And I genuinely think it's because of how his parents raised him. I think it's because Girsha tried to, like, coax him into this, right? You know, we can't leave. We have to live here until we die. Wouldn't you like to leave? Like, he's already trying to raise him to have the same sort of mindset as them. But I feel like that Zeke, you know, he didn't really have those feelings of being a revolutionary. Like, I feel like that Zeke would have just been happy playing ball with his dad and growing up like a normal kid, even if it's a normal kid in, like, a horrific, like, system like this. You know what I mean? And so I feel like that Zeke's whole thing is that, like, he is advocating for never being born, because since he has been alive, like, he has seldom had happy memories. Like, maybe he did have happy memories, like, with his, like, his I guess I should say adoptive father, but who he considers his real father, which is, I think that we decided to call him Caver, right? Like, the scientist guy. So I'm not saying that Zeke has never been happy, but I think it's because of his childhood that colors all of his ideas, basically. And even, like, Caver saying that Caver wishes he was never born and all that stuff, and that coming from his, like, father figure, like, who he considered his father. And so I feel like that that's something that we should keep in mind, that obviously I don't think that this is a great idea, Zeke. I already talked about that in the first half of the video. I would not be me. Like, I think that they should do something else, and I think his plan is basically abhorrent, right? Like, I think that his plan is very, very, very bad. But I'm just sort of trying to explain, like, I think that that is why he thinks that way, because, like, he, you know what I mean? It's sort of hard to explain, but I feel like that life is full of suffering and it's full of, like, happy moments, right? And so, like, our life is usually balanced between those things. Like, we can't always be in happy moments, but we aren't always suffering either, most of the time. However, there are exceptions to that. There are people that have lived lives without a lot of strife, and they have, like, more happy moments, I guess, compared to other people. And there are people that their lives have been a lot of suffering, right? And so I feel like that's something to keep in mind, is that for me, it's easy for me to say, like, yes, like, I've, you know, struggled in this and this way. I've had tough moments. I've had depressing moments. I've had, you know, S word that we can't say on YouTube moments, right? Like, I've had those moments, but at the same time, like, I can think in my life, but I had happy moments here. I've had happy moments with my family here, and I have had happy moments with my friends here. But what we have to keep in mind about Zeke is that he never had any friends. He didn't really have happy moments with his parents like that. We see, like, his parents, like, Girsha was actually a really bad father to him. And so by all accounts, you can see how Zeke grew into this mindset of, it is better not to even have been born, for no one to be born, because this world is only suffering. Now, I think that that's, like, a sort of limited worldview for Zeke, because he's basing that on his own experiences, whereas I think if you talk to someone like, you know, the people in the Survey Corps, like, if you talk to someone like Sasha, right, or someone even like Mikasa, like, even though Mikasa, you know, struggled and went through a lot of suffering in her life, would she think that she was better off not being being born, right? And so I feel like that's the thing with Zeke. That's why Zeke ultimately thinks this way, because he thinks that for most people, like, it's the exact same as what he went through, right? And so I feel like that, I don't know what you call the mindset exactly, but it's a very, like, depressive, like, it's a very, like, dark mindset to have, but that is why he has it. And I think that he does genuinely think like he's saving other people from suffering, and that's why he advocates for this plan, because he's like, you know, I suffered so much as a child, like, no child should be born into a world just to suffer. But what he has to realize is it's about, like, not only about the choice, like, you can't forcibly sterilize people, Zeke. Like, that is not a thing. You can't forcibly sterilize people, right? That's the first thing. But then the second thing is that life is not only full of, like, the moments of what Zeke went through and the people that choose to have kids. You know what I mean? I think, again, Sasha's parents are a great example. Like, look at Sasha's parents and look at what Sasha's parents are doing for those orphans, right? In the sense of, like, family unit, in the sense of family, right? Like, they're struggling right now. They're all in prison right now as we're sort of, like, talking and all of that stuff, but I don't think that they regret being born or being alive. And so I don't know, I feel like that there's a balance, like, there's definitely a balance somewhere. And again, I think that that's why Eren, like, he's gonna betray Zeke. I don't think that Eren agrees with it at all, because you take away the choice. Like, when you force people into one way or the other, like, if you force people into that, you know, that they'll never have kids, when that's something that some people will want to choose to do, like, you're taking away their choice. And so I don't think that that's the idea. I don't think that that's what they should be going for at all. I do think that maybe, like, what Eren will do is change it so nobody can, you know, turn into a Titan anymore after a certain point, right? Like, after they do some stuff, like, end of the show, basically. Like, they'll scare the world, and then after that, like, he'll get rid of the Titan powers and lock them away forever. But I don't think that he's gonna go with what Zeke said. I just couldn't see it. Yeah, and so you have this old man who looks like he could be a sweet old man, but he's not. He's a fucking asshole, right? And so I feel like that, again, this is sort of one of those, like, moments where you realize, like, that Zeke has undergone a lot of suffering, and that was never balanced out with any type of love. Like, you have Gearsha being like, remember this, Zeke. Remember this very traumatic moment of this man throwing water on you so I can use you in my revolution later. Like, that's all that Gearsha, I think, cares about, right? And, like, Gearsha basically does not have a lot of redeeming qualities, right? I think that he realized that he was probably a bad father to Zeke, and that's why he, you know, changed. I think that he changed a lot in the case of Eren, but, like, did he, though? Like, he still kind of turned his son into the revolutionary, you know what I mean? He kind of just redid what happened to Zeke with Eren, with turning Eren into a Titan, with Eren not really knowing what was going on and all that stuff. So yeah, it's kind of fucked up, honestly. I don't think that Gearsha's one of the worst parents in the show, I would argue, just for how he uses his kids. Like, he's like one of those parents that, you know, you force your kids to go into hockey because you wanted to be a hockey player, but then you tore your ACL or something, so you never got to the Olympics, and now you force your kid to play hockey when your kid loves to cook or something, right? Because you're trying to live vicariously through them. I feel like that's really what they tried to do with Zeke, and I understand that Zeke has royal blood, right? And so you could argue, well, you know, people are counting on Zeke like Zeke is special, but he didn't ask, you know what I mean? Like, he didn't ask for that, right? Like, you know, and it's almost like that they procreated on purpose. And again, that's what I'm sort of thinking. Like, I think that this line really impacted Zeke as a child, because he remembers it when he suggests the sterilization plan later. And so I feel like that, again, Zeke has a lot of, like, internalized hatred for himself. And we'll talk about that, because I did take a class. So I'm taking a class on, it's called Philosophy of Oppression and Power and stuff, that's not included in the title. It's Philosophy of Oppression and Power, and, you know, the author that we read, like, for my essay that I had to do on this weekend. So that's why, if you guys are wondering why I'm so frazzled, is because I had an exam that I had to write this weekend, and so I wrote it, and now I'm recording Attack on Titan, and the author talks about, like, internalized, like, hatred for ourselves, that hatred comes from the oppressor, but then anger, like, manifests inside of us, and then what we do with that anger is we use that anger and lash out at other fellow, like, marginalized people, right? So if you've heard of, like, internalized homophobia, right? Say I'm bisexual, but I'm somehow homophobic, right? And it does happen, right? Like, not me, but I'm just saying that it does happen, right? And so if you're, you know, if you're gay, but you have internalized homophobia, that her theory is that that's because hatred comes from the oppressors, but that hatred of manifests inside of you to the point where you are tearing down each other. You tear down other marginalized people because it's easier to tear each other down than to take on, you know, the oppressive system. And she says whiteness because she's talking about like race stuff. So she's talking about like, in her case, like black women tearing down other black women because it's easier. In her, like, this is her like quote, it's easier like to tear down each other. It's easier to crucify yourself and me than take on like the, you know, the oppressive like system of whiteness. That's basically what she says, right? And like it's easier to do that. And so I feel like that for Zeke, it's kind of the same thing. Like when I see all of this stuff in this episode, that's how I sort of feel. Like I feel like that he's saying it's easier for us to destroy ourselves instead of us taking down the actual oppressive systems, right? So I feel like that Zeke kind of fits that to a T, and I'll explain that a little bit more later. But I feel like that again, it's his parents. Like it's almost like his parents gave birth to him for this specific purpose. And so that again plays into this idea that like I didn't ask to be born, I didn't ask to be, you know, put into these circumstances, so I'm gonna prevent that from happening ever again. But again, that's a very bad mindset. I'm trying to make it very clear. I'm trying to make it very clear that I'm not justifying Zeke's mindset. I'm against Zeke's mindset, but I'm trying to explain why he has that mindset, right? And so this line seemed to really impact him, right? Like I think that it really, really impacted him because he thinks about it later. And then he says, you know, remember this well, Zeke, right? Like, and I'm like, you're forcing your child to remember your trauma. And I'm just like, like this was so bad. Zeke, you're gonna save everyone. And so this was just fucked up, right? They basically, like, it's like they popped out a kid just for him to be the savior. And that's a lot of like pressure to put on a kid. But then we see, you know, how when Zeke was younger, like I'm assuming as he got older, he got stronger and he did a little better in warrior training. Or maybe the scientist just picked him anyway. But I really like this because he's like, oh yeah, like one of the kids will be your successor, but who's the one falling behind? I want that one. Like he kind of like picked out Zeke from the very beginning, the underdog, you know what I mean? I thought that that was kind of cool. All the other kids are fiercely competing to be honorary Marleyans, yet he has none of that drive. And so I think that that probably, you know, like piqued his interest, right? Because that's very interesting. Everyone's so fiercely fighting, but Zeke was forced against his will in a lot of ways, right? And so I feel like that that would sort of be like, you know, something that he relates to. That's something that he connects with, right? Because he even says like, yeah, like throwing your life away from Marley is stupid. I only did it because I wanted to die. Like he literally says that later, right? And so I feel like that he may relate to Zeke a lot more than he does with the other cadets. And then he knew later on, right? Later on, he knows that Zeke would carry out like his will in a sense, or I guess their joint will, like their joint philosophy, right? That they both had. And so I feel like, I don't know, maybe he was a little suspicious. Like maybe he sort of felt like deep inside, like when he saw that Zeke was lagging behind, he knew that Zeke wasn't doing it out of like, you know, oh, I want the status of being an honorary Marleyan, or like out of brainwashing, like legitimate like brainwashing, like that I actually want to die for Marley, like how some of the other characters feel. Like maybe by that he saw that Zeke had something different inside of him, is basically what I'm trying to say. Yeah, so see, Zeke says it's tough, but Gearsha's like, I see, but I don't care, right? He doesn't like, you know, pry any like into like, oh, how's it tough, son? He doesn't say any of that. He's like, I know you can be a warrior because you have special power, and most of all, you're our son. And at this point, it doesn't seem like Gearsha is too extreme. Like it seems like he more got desperate later in life as he saw that Zeke was getting like kicked out and like not doing that well and all that stuff. And I think the reason why he's so relaxed is because it's rigged. Like they were going to rig it so Zeke got the Titan powers, right? And so I feel like he wasn't that worried, but as soon as he started falling behind and they were like, hey, you know, he's so far behind it wouldn't even be realistic, they would know that something's up, right? Like I feel like he was relaxed because he's like, it doesn't matter how hard Zeke works, he's gonna get it anyway, right? But then he realized that Zeke wasn't working hard enough for it to be realistic for him to be the one to be chosen, right? And so then we get the scene with the grandparents, and so this is interesting because this reads to me like the grandparents knew all along what they were doing. So I like the grandma here, right? She focuses on like nurturing Zeke as the child, whereas everyone else like is just awful and just again perpetuates, I guess, the suffering aspect of of it because she treats him like a kid, and she's probably the only one, and so that's why Zeke doesn't have any happy memories from when he was a kid, because she's just trying to bake him pies and read him cat books, but then his grandpa is teaching him about slaughtering, right? And then his parents are putting all this pressure on him, and so your social dance club again, Zeke misses you. So I'm under the impression that the grandparents actually knew what was going on, because he says, but it's for the wellness of Libero, and so I was like, what? Like, that doesn't make any sense. It kind of seemed like that they were saying, like, that they, you know, your social dance club again, like, it seemed like that they were kind of, how do you say it? That they were talking in code. Because, yeah, like, what would the dance club have to do with the wellness of Libero? Like, I feel like that the grandparents were in on it, but didn't want to sell out their own kids. Someday, I'm sure Zeke will understand why we're doing this, right? And so it seems like that the grandparents knew what they were doing all along, but just decided to not meddle or not report them, right? Until things got too desperate. Because we always thought, like, oh, Zeke was manipulated by his grandparents to turn in, like, Girsha and Dina, right? His wife, right? But it seems like that the grandparents were actually in on it, and it was more Caver that told him to do it, right? And so that sort of changes the narrative of what we thought happened a little bit. And so yeah, like I guess the grandpa at this point is just like, well, you know, I can't stop. I don't know if it's Girsha's parents? I think it's Girsha's parents, actually, not Dinah's parents, because Dinah, I don't know about, like, her whole thing, but, like, there's a picture of Girsha's sister in this house, so I think that these are actually Girsha's parents, right? And so I don't know about, like, her, like, the maternal grandparents. I think that these are his fraternal grandparents is what I'm trying to say. And so I feel like that they knew what their son was doing, but didn't want to turn in their own son. And maybe they also felt like, yeah, we kind of understand our son, you know, like, after his sister died, like, they probably feel sort of vengeful about it too. But it seems like the grandpa went full into, like, you know, like, teaching their son, like, the bad history Kool-Aid, like, I don't know, like the Marleyan fake history. And I kind of wonder if Girsha's history is actually the true one, or if it's sort of like, you know, like whoever like writes history, like that's a narrative that everyone agrees with and goes with. Like maybe Girsha's history isn't any more right or wrong than the Marleyan version of what happened. But I sort of wonder, I'm like, okay, well, is Girsha's the truth, or is that more propaganda from another extreme side, right? And so I don't really know. But yeah, then we get this scene of like, hey, you know, your dad's teaching you the history, right? And he's just like, right? And then we also get like, you do want to be a warrior, don't you? And we actually see, and I'll show you guys, that we see the, like he sort of glances away because he's like, right? Because he says, do you want to be a warrior and fight for Marley? And he's like, yeah, I want to be a warrior, but he doesn't say anything about fighting for Marley, right? Because of what his dad has already been teaching him. And I think that the grandparents definitely pick up on that, but they aren't going to do anything, right? And so she's like, next time you're here, I'll read you the Cat House book. And I'm just like, let this kid be a kid, bro. This is why he's like this. This is why he turned out like this. Like, you take all of the joy of childhood, like, even in a terrible situation like this, he still could have had a childhood. He still could have just gone to his grandparents, had some pie, and read some Cat House books. But no, and this is why Zeke is fucked up now. So then we get Zeke failing at school some more. He's trying to put together a gun. He's kind of clumsy. You see the guy that's still the guy in charge to this day, right? Like, that guy must be so old because he was, like, in charge when Zeke was a kid and when Annie and Bertolt and Reiner were all kids. Like, and now when Falco and Gabby are kids, he's still in charge, the same guy, right? And so again, like, look at Zeke. He's trying, you know, he's going home. He's, like, very upset about what happened in class today, and he sees this dad, an Eldian dad and an Eldian child, and they're playing ball, and they're having happy memories, right? So I feel like that this is what Zeke forgot, because to me, I look at this and say, see, like, even though there is a terrible, like, this is a terrible, awful, horrible situation, like what the Eldians go through in the zone and where they live. At the same time, there are families here that are having happy memories, that are making happy memories, even in this terrible situation, right? And that doesn't negate the terribleness of the situation, but it just shows you that life is very multifaceted in a lot of ways. And like, you see the son and his father, and they're playing ball, and they're having like happy memories and a good time. This was something that Zeke never had. Like, Zeke never had this this with Gearsha, right? So I feel like that's why Zeke is like, no one should ever be born into this world again, because this world is nothing but suffering. Like, how would Zeke know anything else? Because he never got to experience this. He saw this, but this is so far removed from his youth, if that makes sense. Like, this is so far removed from his youth, and so I feel like that really he, you know, doesn't even probably remember this or even consider this. Like, he thinks that everything ends in suffering, but I see this as like perseverance in a sense. Like, this family is still like, you know, like being like happy and like loving each other and like being in each other's company, right? Like, no matter what. And so I feel like that he saw this and he came home and he's like, Dad, like, let's go do that. Like, we can still have fun and all that stuff, but that was crushed in him. That was really crushed in Zeke. So I feel like that ultimately where I would like to see the show go is being like, you know what, Zeke, you're wrong. Like, there is more to life than just suffering, and like, we shouldn't do this. We shouldn't do what you're suggesting. That's where I hope that it goes, because they try to, like, you know, remind Zeke that there's more to life than that. I don't think that Zeke will make it that far, to be honest, but us as the audience, we will see that there's more to life than just that, right? And so he's like, and so I think that he wanted to play ball, right? But he's like, oh good, we'll be able to study more. So he's basically like, this is torture. He's just torturing his son, and I hate it, right? And so in other words, the tragedy of Lago never happened, right? And so, you know, this is the same like story that the grandfather was telling, but now like Gearsha's telling the correct history. Eldians never had such cruel customs or culture, right? This is interesting because me as the viewer, I'm like, well, is that true? Is that a lie? Right? Like, is this like, you know, is the truth somewhere in the middle? Because I don't know. I don't know. Like, I'm inclined to kind of believe Gearsha, right? Like, you know, after everything that we've seen and Marley making up alternative history for the purpose of propaganda like we saw with Willie, like, I am inclined to believe it, but at the same time, I'm kind of like, I don't know. Like, I don't know if this is any more true than the Marleyan version either, right? Because he says, like, they never had such cruel customs or culture, but, like, didn't, like, the Eldians still kill some people, right? And so that's when I'm sort of, like, I'm a little confused on that point. And so he's like, the founder Ymir wouldn't want that. It's unthinkable, right? And so, you know, they're having their lesson. And so he seems like he, you know, gets that validation and love from his father in that moment until he starts to actually fail. Like, it seems like he's doing well. You're catching on, Zeke. I know it's tough, but you're doing great, right? Like, he seems to have his father's love, but as soon as things start going downhill, like Gearsha, I think that Gearsha's already abusive, right? I think he's already abusive in these scenes for just forcing his son. He's at training all day, and then he's studying all night. Like, I think that this is already abusive, but Gearsha goes way down the deep end in some later scenes, and so we get this, like, why did I think of Mulan, like, oh god, you're not suited for the rage of war, so pack up, go home, you're through. Like, that's all I could think of when I saw this scene, right? And so you have, like, you know, him, he looks a lot younger, though, so I guess that explains, like, why he's so old now with, like, Falco and Gabby and stuff, and then you see all the other kids. Like, this is so fucked up. They just singled him out in front of everyone. That's so fucked up, bro. But yeah, we sure as hell won't leave a Titan in the hands of someone like you. I wonder if he remembers this. Like, how the tables have tabled, am I right? How the tables have turned, you know? And so I really did, like, I thought that like, was an interesting scene because obviously, like, we know what happens. And so I think that it's really interesting. And so it's precisely why he doesn't want to fight for Marley that he ends up getting the Titan powers. And so I feel like that this was really wholesome in a way because he's giving Zeke something that Zeke doesn't have. Like, I feel like that in a lot of ways, this man is a good father figure, but I feel like that there's also a lot of toxicity in, like, this side of things because I feel like that he says this, like, I wanted you to replace my son, the son that I had lost. And so I feel like that Gearsha and Caver are just two sides of an opposite extreme, and though Zeke considers him his actual father, I still feel like there's definitely some extremist stuff going on with him, especially like in later scenes, and I guess I'll talk about it, but he was sort of using Zeke to fill a void in his heart, the same way that Gearsha was using Zeke in order to, like, be this, like, savior and this warrior and all that stuff. So I don't think that we should be like, yeah, this guy's great, and, like, you know, Gearsha's trash. I don't think that it's that clear cut, because I think that this guy has a lot more redeemable qualities than Gearsha, but at the same time, he's also using Zeke in a way. Since my Beast Titan isn't too helpful in war, I mostly just play catch around here, so I wonder, like, if that was a thing, or if Zeke made the Beast Titan more useful, because, like, I don't know, like, I don't quite I remember. Like, I don't know, Zeke seems pretty tasty in a fight, I guess, but I don't know, he did get taken down by Levi pretty quickly, so maybe not. Okay, this guy's called Tom. I'm gonna call him Tom now. I'm not gonna call him by his last name anymore. His name is Tom. I work in Titan research, and so I found this very fascinating, and this is probably why Zeke knows a lot more about the Titans compared to other characters, right? And so I thought that this was, like, you know, kind of nice to see them playing ball back and forth, even though everything that I said about, like, you know, this guy is kind of using Zeke in the same way. Like, I still thought that that was a very wholesome scene, and I liked their interactions together. But I think he goes home to tell his dad, like, guess what? Like, I made friends with the warrior, right? And so I feel like he goes to tell him that, but then he's cut off by, like, oh, this awful scene. That's not what you told me. What gives, Grice? So again, when I saw Grice, I was like, oh, isn't that Falco and Colt's family, right? And so it's, again, reference to the fact that their family, like, used to be caught up in the revolutionists, and they're kind of, like, doing this as, like, atonement, in a sense. If Zeke isn't chosen, the plan is finished, right? And so this is where things get really crazy, right? But Owl said they can't influence the decision unless Zeke has decent scores, right? So Zeke, that's a problem, is that he doesn't have scores good enough to, like, fuck around, basically. He doesn't have scores good enough to even manipulate them, and so, like, that's so fucked, man. Like, everyone, like, oh, yeah, Zeke so bad, like, we can't even fake his way in, like, we can't even fake his transcripts because everyone can see how bad he is, and so this is, like, awful. And so Zeke's spying in on the door. Doesn't Zeke still have a shot, though? He might if Zeke steps up, and so this is where Gearsha gets really abusive and goes really hard on Zeke, because he's getting so fucking, like, desperate of, like, you know, if Zeke steps up, but Zeke is already trying his hardest, right? And so then you see, like, the look on his face. Look how much this guy looks like Falco and Colt. It's crazy. And then you see, obviously, the mom. I know you can do it. You're our son after all, right? But this is where he goes completely off of the deep end, and you see how scared Zeke is, right? And so, like, it is just so heartbreaking after this, because I feel like this was a big turning point for Grisha. Like, he just got so desperate and everything, but it's also just heartbreaking for Zeke, right? Because he's like, yeah, like, I'm gonna prove it, right? Like, I'm gonna prove it to my parents. Let me in open training. But then he's still, like, even with his parents watching, he's still as behind as before. And I sort of wonder, like, I know that probably because of, like, poverty and stuff, the Eldians, like, can't have, like, that many kids in the zone and everything. Like, I think, well, actually, no, scratch that. Like, as Gearsha's parents had 2 kids, right? It was Gearsha and his sister. But I sort of wonder, like, if they were ever considering having another child, right? Like, oh, you know, Zeke's not doing that well, like, maybe we can, like, have another kid, and then they could get into, like, Falco and, like, Gabby's year, in terms of warrior training. Like, they probably didn't know that to that extent, right? Or, you know, like, they didn't know anything about Falco and Gabby, but I just mean comes up, like, one in a century, right? But at the same time, if they had another kid, like, if Zeke had a sibling, would Zeke's sibling be able to be eligible for, like, I guess the position where Colt is in now, or where Gabby and Falco are in now, where there's gonna be, like, another transfer and stuff. So I wonder if they ever considered that. That would be equally fucked up, because that would really prove the fact that they were just, you know, there's the heir and then there's a spare. They thought Zeke was gonna be the heir, but he's not, so they use the spare. And in a sense, you could say that Eren is also a spare, but yeah, it's just so fucked, because he's trying to do his best, and then Gearsha just walks off, and he, like, entirely gives up on his son, right? And so I think that he sees that. I think that Tom really sees that in him, right? And it's just so horrible. And then you see this scene again, like, Gearsha's yelling, he's slamming stuff, and the mom's trying to, like, you know, he's, like, trying his best. He'll never be a warrior like this. And this is just so heartbreaking. And again, like, he's in, like, this abusive situation. He's outside of the door, hiding with the sheet on him. And it's just so sad. Like, it's just so sad. And I can see how this really fucked up Zeke's life. Like, this is why he thinks the way he does now. So I really like this scene between them, because they have a little back and forth where it's like, you were a mess the other day, right? But I like this part of the scene. I have to become one, yet I totally failed. So again, he still wants to get his father's validation out and everything. No big deal. It's stupid for you to become a warrior. And Zeke's like, huh? Like, he's looking around like, you can say that, bro? Like, I thought that was, like, so, like, funny to see him look around. It's dumb to shorten your life for Marley and get sent to fight for other nations. Or, to fight other nations. Not to fight for other nations. To fight other nations. And so he's like, like, you can't say that, sir. Why did he want to become a warrior? To learn the secrets of Titans. I'm a researcher, you know. Everything started when Founder Ymir touched something. And I'm really interested into, like, if we'll ever find out what that something was. us. Like, I don't know. I can't think of what it would be. I'm just saying, like, it would be interesting if we knew. But I wanted to know the truth of it all, enough to shorten my life and look through Titan memories, right? And obviously we know he also has a death wish, but we'll talk about that later. That's why I'm pretty much useless when it comes to war. But I'm like, who chose you though, sir? Right? Like, who chose you to have the Titan shifting powers? Or did he get the warrior powers first and became a researcher later? Compared to the mysteries of Titans, hatred and war seems so trivial. I like this guy. I like this guy in a sense. That's why you and I aren't interested in their war games. And I like this too, right? Because he sort of, I feel like this is why he picked Zeke, because Zeke is different than all of the other cadets. We're just two decent people, a real rarity in this world. And again, this is where I'm kind of like, even though I like this guy, I like Tom, don't get me wrong, this is also why Tom is kind of like bad in terms of like influencing Zeke's mindset, because he is now being told that decent people are very, very rare and that everyone is like his parents, for example, and that means that a lot of kids are suffering like he is, right? And so again, this plays into his mindset later, and so I feel like that this was really damaging to promote this. Yeah, we're basically the only two decent people in the world. Like, he didn't say that exactly, but you know what I mean, right? So I feel like that this was bad. This is for the best, even if I can't leave the internment zone as long as I'm alive. So see, this is what I'm saying. I think that Zeke would have been fine with a happy life with his parents, right? Like, I feel like that he would have been satisfied with that and his entire mindset would have changed. But it's because he was robbed of all of the normal happy moments in childhood that he now thinks that the inevitable for everyone is suffering. And so for him, in order to save his own people, right, he wants to make sure that no one can ever be born. And again, I think that that's fucked up. I don't think that that's the right mindset for him to have at all. But that's why he thinks this way, because he thinks that the world is just suffering. And then we see him like eavesdrop on this by accident, the Eldian restorational list, so we must know that this is his parents right at this point. A trader called Owl formed it. We've got a few hunches already. It's just a matter of proof. It's just a matter of time till we get solid proof, right? And so then we get this scene where Zeke's like, please stop doing the bads, right? Because he doesn't know exactly what they're doing, but I think that's why the grandparents must have been in on it. I think that Social Dance Club was just like a cover story, but obviously the parents then freak out on him. And see, they just go ham on him, and you can see even in this scene how much Gearsha is starting to look like Eren, which is probably not a good sign at all. And so he says, have you learned nothing I've taught you? Unless someone takes a stand, we'll live pitiful lives in this tiny cage. And so again, I feel like that this was reinforced by his dad as well, that, you know, like these lives are pitiful lives, right? But they could have been worth living if you weren't such a fucking asshole, right? That's really what it comes down to. That's right, we're fighting for the future of all Eldians, including yours. And so now, like, Zeke is basically saying, oh, I'm supposed to fight for the future of all Eldians, so I'll make it so there's not one, right? And so he's basically, I think, a lot of his twisted mindset is coming from his parents right here. Even if there's a chance I'll end up like Aunt Faye, right? And so he's like, Zeke, the only reason Faye died is because of this twisted world. And so we have to keep in mind this, like, thing of cycles again, right? And, like, even though I don't think that Gearsha has any redeeming qualities, I will say that the cycle of, like, vengeance and creating monsters still exists here, right? You know, Gearsha turned into a monster because of what happened to his sister and because of the guards that did it. Then Gearsha turned Zeke into a monster. Zeke and Reiner turned Eren into a monster. Eren turned Gabby into a monster. Like, as the episodes keep going, we keep seeing the source. Like, we keep seeing the source all the way up and down this tree, right? And so even though, like, I think that Gearsha really fucked Zeke up, and I can't really forgive Gearsha for doing that, I think that Gearsha also got fucked up based on what happened to his sister, and that we as the audience should also keep that in mind, that this is why he thinks that life is pitiful and is passing that on to Zeke, because he was robbed of his childhood too, and his sister was robbed of her innocence too. And so we do have to keep that in mind as the viewer, right? We have to fight so nobody else ends up like her. But Zeke takes that as, well, no one can end up like her if no one's ever born, which is like, right, again, but this is how his parents created him into the monster he is today. We must restore the strength of Eldia and win our rights back. But see, he wanted to do it that way, not in the way that Zeke is saying, but it just broke his heart, the fact that his parents wouldn't give up what they were doing so they could, like, be a happy family instead, and it's kind of sad. And I loved this scene. I wonder what's going on with the blimp. I wonder if they're hiding just because, like, I don't think it's, you know, seeing them together type thing, but I wonder if that's, like, one of the blimp they used to drop the Titans or something, because it seems like they're hiding, and I'm like, why? Like, I don't know, maybe it's not because of that. Maybe they're just sitting on the ground, and the blimp was to illustrate, like, the military's around, the war is doing the war things, right? And so it's like, you're kidding me, your parents are restorationalists, right? And so he says, like, you know, Tom, thanks for playing catch with me, right? Even when I'm a Titan, I'll remember you, and this was just so heartbreaking, right? But again, like, he gave Zeke, like, a sliver of a happy childhood in this sense of, like, the playing catch stuff, right? And so he, like, freaks out, and he, I think, makes a call here. And I think that ultimately, again, I like you, Tom, nothing against him, but I think that he makes a call out of his own selfishness, in a sense, because yes, on one hand, this does probably save Zeke, right? Like, this does save Zeke, you know, turning in his parents, but at the same time, there's also always that possibility that his parents would have never gotten caught, right? And that Zeke would have never been punished. And so I feel like that it's a mixture, right? He wants to save Zeke's life, but at the same time, isn't there a selfish aspect to all this? I don't know. And I'm not saying selfish is in like a mwahaha selfish, but I feel like that deep inside, the reason why he did this maybe wasn't necessarily for Zeke's safety, for Zeke as a person, but more because he sees Zeke as a stand-in for his son. He's already lost one son. He doesn't want to lose his surrogate son too. And so he suggests something a little bit like questionable, right? He suggests something a little questionable to report them because he himself is having a mental breakdown about losing him too. It's your only hope. If you report them to Marley and prove your loyalty, you and your grandparents might be spared. And so he says, I could never do that, right? So he resists at first. But I feel like that again, Tom, I don't know, it's so hard to say it. Like, I'm not blaming Tom. Like, I feel like that ultimately, did Tom probably save Zeke's life? Like, yes. And did he do that because he cared about Zeke? Yes. But did he do that, I think, also, like, from his own, like, selfishness and from a place of his own, like, side and everything without considering, like, how it would go, like, for, you know, his parents and stuff like that? Like, I don't know. It's just such a weird situation because on one hand, I'm like, yeah, Tom is kind of right when he says, Zeke, your parents have been terrible to you. But at the same time, is he not manipulating Zeke in a way as well? And so I feel like that really, even though Tom is a better guy than Gearsha and Tom just push Zeke to two opposite extremes. That's how I feel about what their characters are supposed to represent. I would like to hear what you guys think about that, right? Your parents have been terrible to you. They gave up on you and never cared how you felt. And so then you see the grandparents here, like the grandparents are crying at the fact that their children are like being taken away, or I guess like their child and then his wife, right? They never loved you, right? And so here's what I'm saying, right? Like, I feel like this is a bit manipulative, the they never loved you, because do I really believe that? I don't think that at least the mom never loved him, because the mom was always softer on him than Gearsha was, but at the same time, you could argue that the mom's complicit in abuse as well, and so I don't really know. Like, I don't know, but at the same time, like, that's how I read this scene. Like, I read this as Tom being a little manipulative and really driving it into his head, because this is true, right? They were terrible to him. That's true. They gave up on you. That's true too, to an extent. They never cared how you felt. Yeah, Gearsha didn't, right? But to say that they never loved him, that's a really big thing. And so I feel like that Tom intentionally kind of pushed Zeke to the edge, right? And I don't know how I feel about that. Again, I don't think Tom is a bad person. I think primarily he did it for Zeke, to save Zeke, but then there's that underlying thing of him seeing Zeke as his son and maybe wanting, you know, like wanting Zeke to be alive, to be that surrogate son, right? And so there's a bit of like like there's something about that, right? Zeke, you've done nothing wrong, right? I do think that that was like a good point to say that like Zeke hasn't done anything to deserve this. He hasn't done anything to deserve this abuse, right? You're a smart kid, a good kid, and I feel like that's true. But look at how they hug. And so that's the thing. It's like they're just two broken people, you know? But I feel like that he put a lot on this kid. He put a lot on this kid to heal his wounds, I think. And I don't know if that was very good. I don't know if that was very good of him. Then we see Zeke grown up. And so I see that a lot of like how Zeke interacts with this guy is how Zeke interacts with Levi. Obviously, they do it more friendly, but this is where Zeke got his sense of humor from. And obviously, Zeke is older now. He's still a cadet. He's probably doing a little bit better in terms of training and stuff. I'm not that old, except his term is probably going to be up soon. That's what he says about that. And then he says, he says, yeah. And then they see we see Peck, we see Bertold, we see, I think this is Reiner, we see Gillard, we see Porco, and then lagging behind is Annie. And I wonder if that's some sort of representation of something? I don't know what it would be exactly, but like think of where we are during the plot right now. Like everyone, I mean, except for Bertold, he's dead. But like think about Peck. Peck is the first person that we see in Paradise. Maybe after that, it'll be Reiner and Gillard, and then the very last person that we'll see in Paradise will be Annie, like after she gets out of the encasing or something. That could be like, that's a little crack theory, that this could be foreshadowing in some way, right? But I don't know. I didn't get to grow old, but I don't regret a life of research. I'll be able to release a compilation. The things the founding Titan did to the subjects of Ymir, right? And so, like rewriting their memories, not just memories, it can change the autonomy of their bodies. And so here's my theory, is that they'll use this to stop Titan's shifting period, to stop everyone from being able to turn into Titans, period. But obviously, Zeke takes this in a not so nice way, and then we have the plague. A terrible plague devastated the population, but all of a sudden, the disease just vanished from the Eldian Empire. The king at the time used the founding Titan to change how their bodies work, right? And so they basically change it to get rid of the disease or to be resistant to the disease, right? No matter where we go, the subjects of Ymir are part of the founding Titan, right? Scary, right? Yeah. And so I feel like that this will be used in a less sterilization eugenics way and will be more used so no one can have Titan powers ever again, right? And then maybe, I don't know, maybe the world will be better somehow. Maybe that's a naive thing to think. I don't know. Right? And so, again, Zeke's childhood is in play here. And this is what I said when I talked about that article that I had to read for class and that essay that I had to write, right? I feel like that what's wrong with Zeke is kind of what was wrong with Willie in a way. Like, I feel like that Zeke has internalized, like, racism, if that makes sense. What do you call it? I don't know. Like, obviously, we say, like, internalized homophobia if it's in the LGBT community. But I don't know what you would call it in this case. But he has internalized racism. And I feel like that the way that he perpetuates that racism is, again, what I said earlier, right? It's easier to like crucify yourself in me or myself in you than it is to take on like the oppressive system. And so I feel like that this was really internalized. Why are you pumping out more devils, right? And so I feel like that Zeke really took that to heart. And obviously, like, that's the rhetoric of the oppressor. That is the hatred that the oppressor gives, but then you like lash at it back. And I think that there was another quote from that reading, and it was something along the lines of the language that the oppressors like use against us, we used to tear down our brothers and sisters, basically. Like, that was the idea, and we use it to, like, more importantly, tear down ourselves. And so basically the point of her reading, right, at least hopefully I got an A on my essay. The point of her reading is that, one, we need to learn to love and value ourselves, and then we need to learn to love and value our fellow marginalized people. That is the point of that lady's reading, is that, like, we cannot do anything, right? Like, we cannot take down an oppressive system unless we first find ourselves worthy and find value in ourselves. And through finding value in ourselves, we will again see value, right, in our fellow, like, marginalized people. And so I feel like that what happened to Zeke is a lot of what she talks about. Like, she basically talks about, like, how hatred comes from the oppressors, but that turns into anger in a marginalized person, and a marginalized person will, like, have that anger, like, tear each other apart. So yeah, it's basically about that. It's that we have that anger fester inside of us until we tear each other apart. And so I feel like that's kind of what's happening with Zeke in a way, that all of the internalized rhetoric that he has heard since he was a child, right, he thinks that this is the solution, right? And all of the suffering that he has gone through personally, he thinks that this is the solution, right? And this guy seemed like shocked. If none of us were able to have kids, Titans would be wiped out in 100 years, right? The world wouldn't have to fear or be threatened by Titans anymore. What's more, if we hadn't been born, we wouldn't have had to suffer, right? And so this is where this man could have said, life isn't just suffering, or said something else, you know what I mean? But he didn't, he agreed, right? And so I feel like there's two problems there. Like, one, the world won't have to fear, like, with the Titans anymore. Like, technically, yes, that is true. However, you could achieve that through making it so no one can turn into Titan shifters, right? Like, you could change that without this bad idea. But he says, what's more, if we hadn't been born, we wouldn't have had to suffer. And that is coming from a personal place, not necessarily like a logical one for this plan, I guess, right? Because if you want to do the first part, you can just change everybody's bodily makeup in order so no one can change into a Titan, right? Like that would solve the problem of the world being afraid as Titan shifters, but this is selfish. And I feel like that this is the internalized thing of like, you are less than, like your pitiful lives are not worth living. He's internalized that rhetoric, and now he is perpetuating that rhetoric onto his fellow Eldians, when the fellow Eldians may be like, dude, like, we live happy lives. Like, sure, like, there's a lot of, like, you know, there is a lot of suffering, but we also have a lot of happiness, right? Like, they must be like, you know, dude, like, that's not it. You know what I mean? And so I feel like that he's coming at this from, like, a very personal place, whereas other people, I think, would surely disagree at this idea that, like, you know, yeah, if you hadn't been born, you wouldn't have to suffer, but that doesn't mean that no one should be born. You know what I mean? Like, you're supposed to want to make a better future for everyone. You're so, you know, like, you're not supposed to want to, like, make it so they have no future at all, right? And so I feel like that this is where Zeke's mindset gets really fucked up. And so I feel like that he doesn't even catch the ball. He's so shocked. And so he thinks about his own life. And again, I feel like that this is what encouraged Zeke to make this choice. I understand that this man has had life with suffering, but you couldn't have, like, been like, no, don't do that. Like, I feel like that a big perpetuator in this situation was the fact that he agreed. Like, he wasn't like, no, Zeke, don't think like that. I've had happy moments with you. He does mention that. He does mention he's had happy moments playing catch with him, but that's not the part that Zeke takes away. Zeke takes the bad part away, right? I've never spoken about it, and this guy's backstory is so fucked up, by the way, and so tragic, right? I never once spoke about it, but I had a family once. In my foolish youth, I removed my armband, so I wonder how that happened. Like, and after hiding the fact I was an Eldian, I had a wife and child, right? So this man went, like, full incognito. Like, he got married, he had a kid, and so we kind of have, like, a Reiner situation going on here, and so again, we have this idea of cycles, maybe. Like, Reiner's dad was Marleyan, but wouldn't be able to acknowledge him, and then we see the scene build up around him, and I'm not going to show this because this is way too fucked up for YouTube, but I do like the scene composition in that first you have his wife, and then you have the books and the lamb, and there's some more decorations. There's like a kid's trolley here, but yeah, he basically talks about, I knew I couldn't hide it forever, but when my wife found out I was Eldian, she slit my son's throat in her own, and this is the most fucked up thing that has ever happened in Attack on Titan, I think, and this is why I needed to step away, because I feel like that this was really like triggering in a way. Like, this was like so far than anything else that has gone through the show, and I can't even imagine like how this man must feel about that. Like, he, you know, loved this woman, like, most likely to have a child, and he definitely loved his child, and then she finds this out about him and does this because of, like, you know, the Marleyan propaganda and all these things that she has in her head and all that stuff, that she hates herself so much that she kills herself, right? And then she also, like, murders her own son because he's Eldian, because of the propaganda that the Marleyans have, like, you know, like, spread about, like, oh, you know, if you do this with the Eldians, if you do that, like, they're not equal to you, they're not human to you, they're devils, right? And so it's just so fucked up. Like, this is one of the most fucked up things in the entire show. And so to that, I don't necessarily, like, blame Tom for having the level of trauma where he tries to find a son in Zeke. You know what I mean? Because this is the most fucked up thing that anyone could ever go through. Me becoming a warrior was merely a grandiose way to commit suicide, but for 13 years, I immersed myself in Titan research, met you, and played catch. Well, see, so here's the thing. He told a sad story about suffering, but I thought the point of what he's saying, right, some of it, and maybe he doesn't realize it, because he does say, oh yes, I do wish I didn't suffer, but, like, part of the point, is it not that, like, it's been fun? He had fun, right? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, he had, like, happy memories. He made happy memories with Zeke. I looked for my dead son in you. I ran from my sins with my Titan power. So that's probably not so fun, right? Like, that's not so fun. But I'm saying, like, he's so close. He's so close to just saying that I immersed myself in my research, I met you, and we made happy memories despite suffering. So don't do this. Instead, he says, if only I hadn't been born into the this world because he still feels guilty, and I understand that that guilt must be unimaginable, and I'm not necessarily blaming him for feeling guilty again. I feel like that this character is really multifaceted and complex and super interesting. I just feel like I'm like, you were so close. You were so close to just telling Zeke that the world wasn't just suffering, but I still feel like that, you know, this is how he genuinely feels, and I feel like they both have the same philosophy, right? They both never wanted to be born, and that's how, like, he wants to save the world now. And I feel like, again, a lot of that must have been, like, you know, like, based off of what Tom told him, right? And he really took that to heart. But I'm like, Tom, you were so close. All you had to do was tell him not to do the bads. All you had to do was tell him that was not the answer. But then he did anyway, right? I'll free the world from the terror of the Titans and free all of the Eldians from suffering. And so I'm like, this is something I haven't told Marley, a way to break the vow renouncing war. As luck would have it, it's only possible because it's you, right? And so they're talking about, I guess, this final plan. If a Titan with royal blood comes in contact with the founding Titan, it's possible to draw out its power. However, the power isn't yours to use. That right lies with the founding Titan. And I feel like that this is foreshadowing to circumvent Zeke's plan. And so ultimately, they're saying that the right lies with the founding Titan, and that's Eren. So I feel like that this is ultimately set up for Eren to betray Zeke in a way. Essentially, you're the key to the lock. And so I feel like that Eren will betray Zeke. The founding Titan needs to be someone you trust. I don't think Eren's that person. So I think that Eren is basically going to disagree. Someone who understands our sterilization plan. It's not euthanization. That doesn't really make any sense. And so that's what I was told, is that it's sterilization. There was a bit of a translation mix up. Apparently it happened in the manga as well. And then I know you'll find that someone, and like, this was so heartbreaking though. Like, look at how happy he is. And it was so fucking sad. And then Zeke comes out of it and he puts the glasses on. I'll find that someone, father. And he considered him his father. And like, that's the worst part. It's just like, there's so many conflicting emotions, because at first I'm like it's wholesome in some ways, but then the more you dig into it, the worse it gets, sort of thing, right? Eren Yeager. So this must have been the first time that Zeke like heard about this, right? On the boat and all that stuff. And now we're going back to the basement area, right? We're going back there. Like, Eren's like, that's where it all started. Let's go back. He says that last episode, right? Did you hear Eren say anything about his father? I believe he said his father's missing and used to be a doctor, right? Unbelievable. That father was alive, right? And so again, he doesn't even consider him his father anymore. He fully considered Tom his father. And I feel like that's really, you know, a big thing. Eren, we're victims. You've been brainwashed by him. And see, here's the thing. Zeke is running under the assumption that Gira was the same type of father to Eren that Girsha was to Zeke, which is not true. You've been brainwashed by him, but Eren was never treated to the same extent that Zeke was, right? And so I feel like that's an interesting aspect of all this. Someday I'll come rescue you. He was planning on saving Eren because he's like, oh my god, Eren probably suffered the exact way I did. Like, dad was abusive. He was probably abusive towards Eren, right? But I think that like Eren like had a very different experience, right? You're starting to resemble father a bit. Yeah, it's true. Like, they look so uncannily alike now. And I feel like that's a piece of foreshadowing as well. First of all, thanks for coming here to talk with me. My stance is exactly what Yelena told you. Do you support the Eldian sterilization plan? I don't think he does. I don't think he does. I'm just gonna say it. I don't think that Eren supports it at all. I don't think he supports it. I don't think he does. 4 years ago, I think that this is a trick, basically, is what I'm saying. I think that Eren's just using Zeke for his own plan and his own motive. He would never sterilize everyone. That doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense with all his talks about freedom. 4 years ago, some of Dad's memories opened up to me. Memories of when he slaughtered the Wall's royal family. He crushed their little kids and smeared them like bugs. I felt it too. If those kids lived, the royal family would retake the founding Titan. Bound by the vow, renouncing war, humanity and the Walls would have been doomed. Those kids dying is what let us live, right? And so, oh god. And so that's like, I don't even know what to make of all that, to be perfectly honest with you. I'm not even sure what to make of that, right? And so you believe that father was right. So he's basically saying, like, you know, was father right then because he did that and now you guys are alive, so, right? And so he's like, no, he was wrong. And I, the son he raised, was wrong too, right? I don't believe that though. I think that maybe it's true, like that Girsha was wrong, but I feel like that Eren has a third thing. He doesn't agree with Zeke, but he doesn't agree with Gearsha. He has a third thing. He has a third thing, right? If Eldians hadn't been born in this city, these people wouldn't have to die in this plan of ours. But it said no, he does say hadn't been born this city, these people. Okay. I thought he said if Eldians hadn't been born in this city, because that would have been different. That could have been like a hint, right? There is no hint. It's just, yeah, plainly as it is. I think he could just be lying, though. Eren could be lying. I don't think so. There's no greater salvation than never being born in this world. I don't think that he's doing it. I think he's just manipulating Zeke. I think that's why Eren thinks it's so funny how everyone's like, Zeke is manipulating you, and Eren's probably sitting there like, I'm manipulating him, right? I think that's probably why he feels so strongly about it, right? I'll do it. I'll put an end to 2,000 years of Titan domination. See, that may be true, but it could be tricky. Just how, like, Zeke says, like, yes, I do want to be a warrior, and then he doesn't say the but for Marley part, right? And so he says, I'll do it. I'll put an end to 2,000 years of Titan domination. But he doesn't say that he will go with the sterilization plan to do that. So I think that that's a hint. I think that that's a hint that it's not him siding with the sterilization plan. I think that it's him saying, like, yeah, I will end Titan domination, but not that way, right? He's just using him, right? Yeah, you're right, let's do it. I wish I could shake your hand, but it's best we don't make contact just yet, so take this. Right, Eren, we're gonna save everyone. I think that that's not it. I think that it's not it. I think Eren's just tricking him. I think he's tricking him. Our soul salvation is LD's sterilization. You say something, sterilization, right? And so this could actually, like, give Levi insight on the big plan, and what if he spreads that around and people revolt against Eren? That could be really interesting. You're about to find yourself in a Titan's mouth, and I'm like, how? Did he keep one Titan alive? I don't know. Like, did he keep someone alive to just eat Zeke? Right? Like, wouldn't the Titans listen to what Zeke says? That, like, is unclear to me. Listening to what it sounds like to be digested. Oh, God, I love Levi's line so much. Compared to how you stole the lives of my comrades, it sounds like a pleasant way to die. I didn't steal, I saved lives, right? So his perspective is he saved them, right? The lives of the children they would bear from this cruel world. And so, again, that's where we see Zeke's perspective. And so, I don't think that Levi expected Zeke to go all S-word on us, right? And so that's pretty fucked up that he decided to do it anyway. And so I feel like that harkens back to what Tom had said, like it was just a grandiose way to commit the S-word, right? Like that's basically what he says. And so I feel like that in this case, it's pretty much like the same thing is going on right here, is that like he's just like, oh, okay, well, I will do it, right? I hope that you're watching. And so he's willing. I didn't know that Zeke would be willing to do that, but I think that Zeke also maybe predicted that he wouldn't necessarily die from that, especially because his legs were growing back and Levi was like, oh, it's time to cut off your legs again so you don't turn into a Titan. Like maybe he will turn into the Beast Titan and be fine from this, whereas Levi, I feel like, is not going to be in good shape. Do I think Levi died? No. But do I think that Levi's probably fucked up? Like maybe he has burn marks or something? Probably. Like his face was right in there, right? And the horse he got on fire, and I was like, that is so disturbing, and I can't show that to you guys for obvious reasons, right? And so yeah, that's where we ended off. I do think that we're gonna get some big like shenanigans, like some sort of big finale showdown next episode. I feel like Zeke and Eren are gonna meet right where it all started, by the basement, but maybe Peck and Reiner are around too, and we're gonna like leave off on this big cliffhanger, and it's gonna be very funky fresh, right? The futures they seek are incompatible. See, so you have Jean and Connie and they're behind bars. Then you have Yelena and she's on the other side, right? And then you have Niccolo, who's grabbing at this guy, and I sort of wonder why. I don't really know why. In the place it all began. Yeah, so they're on the other side over here, and then Yelena has a gun. What's she gonna do with that? We'll see. I think she's like, I have a gun. Come follow me, right? That's the only thing that I could see from that. But otherwise, it's interesting how Niccolo's just with them, right? But yeah, I feel like that we're all gonna go somewhere. We're all gonna go on a little field trip back where it all began, and I feel like it's gonna be Mikasa's there, Armin's there, Jean's there, Connie's there, maybe not Niccolo. That doesn't really make any sense. But like Falco's there, Hanja's there, Levi's there, like, you know, Zeke's there, like everyone is there, and it's gonna be this big thing. And I don't really know what else to predict, really. It's kind of hard because I'm like, did they clearly design this episode to be the last one of this like cliffhanger? You know what I mean? Like, did they design the first half of the final season, and then afterwards design the second half of the final season. And so will this be like a separate cliffhanger, or will this just be like any other episode? Do you guys understand what I mean? Like, will next episode be the finale where like big stuff is happening, or is next episode just going to be a regular episode and then they're going to announce part 2 at a later time? Like, I don't remember when you watch Attack on Titan season 3 part 1 and 2 if it's very clear that it was written to be a finale, or if it was written like any other episode, so if you're binging you don't notice this like big like rush of adrenaline for no particular reason, right? So I sort of wonder how it will go down. Was the next episode written to be a finale, or was it written to be like any other episode? But obviously, you know, even if an episode is not necessarily a finale, there's still climaxes and falls and stuff. And so yeah, that's basically all I have to say, guys. I hope that you guys enjoyed my video. It is now 1 in the morning. I'm going to bed. Good night. We did it. Woohoo! But yeah, thank you to everyone who has watched this long. I know this video is probably going to be like 2 hours or so. Like, it's going to be 2 hours long, including my reaction. So it's definitely going to be a big one. I think at this point I am just going to have them like be together. It doesn't really make sense to separate them. Thank you so much to the editor. I'm pretty sure it's Q-Blitz. I'm pretty sure Q-Blitz did this one, so you guys should definitely go check that out if you've gotten this far. I'll make sure to put something at the beginning as well for Q-Blitz, because, like, you know, it was a time editing this, I'm very sure. And so, yeah, that is basically it from me, guys. I hope that you guys enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!